right, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? I am so excited to come and talk to you today about data analytics for small to medium-sized businesses. We are so excited to be joined with you all today. I want to give a quick introduction of myself. I'm Tim. I work as the Chief Operating Officer with Brewster Consulting Group. And my background is in healthcare and higher education project management and operations leadership. I have used what we're going to be talking about today to drive a ton of value at organizations. I'm really happy to share some of what we have learned through the years with you all to be a help to small to medium-sized business segment. You'll notice that we've got a bit of a Star Wars theme going on today. We could not let May the 4th slip by without taking advantage of that. So let's dive on into the meat of our presentation here today. We've got Master Yoda here to give us a little bit of housekeeping items just so everybody can be aware. First, we just want to say thank you for coming. We know you all are busy executives, busy leaders, busy business owners in the small to medium-sized business space, and we want to respect your time by hopefully giving you valuable insights into issues that SMBs are experiencing today. We also have muted you in this webinar, so if you are concerned that you might be seen on camera or heard, I can assure you that you won't be. But please, if you want to interact with the folks who are in the webinar or with me, please use the chat and QA feature over on the right-hand side of your screen to do that. The chat will allow you to communicate with everybody else in the presentation. The QA functionality comes directly to me. So let's practice. I want us to think about the most pressing data issue that you're facing at your organization and throw that in the chat. And last but not least, we want to tell everybody again, thanks for coming, and ultimately may the 4th be with you. So let's dive on into the meat of our presentation here. Who is Brewster Consulting Group and why should you listen to us? Over on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see Cade Brewster. He is the founder and chief executive officer of Brewster Consulting Group. Cade grew up in financial services. He has led Six Sigma teams, so PI teams. He is a Lean Six Sigma black belt himself. He's also led project management functions in the financial services space. And he started Brewster Consulting Group with really a vision of providing data analytics, PI and PM type services to firms that really outshines our competition. Everybody here has worked with an expensive consultant who's delivered very little value to your organization. We like to think that we bump that curve whenever it comes to delivering measurable value to your business. And that's the foundation that Cade has built this business on. So we're privileged to have him as our fearless leader. Ben, he grew up in healthcare and grocery. And Cade likes to say he collects certifications like it's his job. So Ben's a PMI, PMP certified project manager. He's also a Six Sigma black belt and a CFA and has a master's in analytics from Duke. So if there is a data question that you've got, chances are Mr. Ben Vaughn can answer that question. Ben runs our delivery teams as the VP of Analytics Services and is just an all-around swell guy. Over on the right-hand side of your screen, you've got Greg. Greg runs all of our sales operations and everything sales marketing rolls up to him. He's got a ton of experience, just a wealth of experience in building and maintaining relationships with our clients that we are so privileged to earn. And then last but not least, myself, I grew up, like I said before, in higher education and healthcare. I'm also a certified project management professional and an MBA graduate, driven over $30 million of value at organizations using the methodologies that we're talking about today. So that's who we are. That's our leadership team. And we're excited to be talking to you guys today. So let's talk a little bit about why we care about the small to medium-sized business segment. The main reason that we care is that traditionally, the SMB space has been underserved in the data and analytics space. We've all heard the excuses. SMBs don't have enough money to pay for expensive analytics software or consultants. They're too small to benefit from analytics and data. We 100% believe that small to medium-sized businesses can benefit just as much, if not even in some cases more, than the large counterparts that we see in the marketplace today. Ultimately, we've made it our commitment at Brewster Consulting Group to serve the SMBs as our foundation and really build the data functions at these organizations as our primary focus. Now, we'll gladly work with large firms too with big budgets, but we're putting our focus on our beliefs and core values, and we're so excited to serve the SMB market. And that's why we're talking to you guys today. Again, we're just privileged that you all would join us today and have a part in this journey with us. So let's dive into what are we talking about today, right? Number one, we're going to talk about the 4 key data issues that we see at Brewster Consulting Group are facing the small to medium sized business market. And then number 2, we're going to walk through a use case to apply what we learn from those 4 key data issues and see how we can overcome them. The 4 key data issues that we're talking about today: number 1, data accuracy and consistency. Number 2, data silos. Number 3, historical data and reporting. And number 4, manual data processes. Moving right along here to data accuracy and consistency, our first issue. So to go along with the Star Wars theme, let's pretend that we're the director of a droid manufacturing facility and head assembly time is the metric that we're trying to measure. I've got 3 managers who measure this KPI differently. George from Team A, he says that head assembly time is defined as the first screw tightened to the QA process start, right? Pretty logical definition of head assembly time if I were to work in a droid assembly facility. Number 2, Lucas, Team B manager. He defines head assembly time as the head place to the screws completely tightened down. Again, perfectly logical explanation for this KPI. And last but not least, Leia, who's the manager of Team C, she says that the head's placed, screws tightened, and the QA process starts. That's how we measure head assembly time in our facility. I've got 3 managers who are measuring this KPI completely differently, right? Fundamentally, these guys are all speaking a different language. If everyone's speaking a different language at the definition level, the data is going to be completely useless whenever we get to the aggregated level, right? So to use a real life example, the KPI here could easily be replaced with call handle time, say in a call center environment. So let's pretend we're a director in a call center, right? George defines call handle time as the first ring to the hang up, right? Lucas describes it as call start to call end. Again, perfectly logical definitions, right? Leia describes it as the first ring to the disposition time, right? The point is, no matter the KPI that you're measuring, if everybody's got a different definition, it's completely useless. And your measurement system that you're eventually going to put together will be useless as well. And you're going to be making bad data decisions off of the information that you have. It's as simple as that. So my question for you is, can you say without a shadow of a doubt that at your organization, everybody's speaking the same language? If you are, you'd be the first organization that we have heard of that is doing that. If not, though, you really need to get it straightened out. Any kind of decision making as a leader has to hinge on the fact that you're being fed good data to be able to drive your organization forward, right? So let's move on to data silos, our second key issue that we see. Of all the 4 issues that we're talking about today, this one it's got to be the most frustrating to a leader, right? Data silos are so easy to build and they're so tough to break down, but they need to be broken down if you desire to grow as a business, right? So as a small business, you might have started out, say, with a CRM platform, a customer relationship management platform, so you can track your client details, you can track contact information and things like that for your clients. Let's say 2 years ago, you experienced some growth, right? And you need to put in an applicant tracking system to be able to put your arms around the HR function at your organization. So you put in Bullhorn ATS as an example, and you realized at that time, man, it'd be really cool if Bullhorn and Salesforce, if that's your CRM, really could talk to one another. And quickly lost sight of that and moved on to the next burning fire as an operator, right? Probably the right decision in that situation, but pushing that off, we'll see how this kind of compounds and ultimately is bad for business. Another year goes by, your organization's grown significantly. Oh, so these 2 are not connected. That's what I'm trying to say. Another year goes by, organization's grown significantly. You've got 3 more core systems, right? You've got a professional services automation tool. You've got a learning management system. And now you've got a project management platform. And none of these are tied together, right? You can't see your weighted sales pipeline layered on top of your 1099 contracts to know how many people you've got to procure to deliver on the new deal that you just signed this week. Does this sound like your organization? I can promise you, if it does, you are not alone. Let's use another example within the financial services industry. So one common data silo that we see in practice whenever we work with financial services is that core banking platforms and mortgage servicing platforms do not share information back and forth. This ultimately puts the onus back on your customer let's say, who's been a member for 10 years and they want to apply for a mortgage, and they're now being asked for demographic information like their name and address that already exists somewhere in your core banking platform system. If I'm that customer, I'm getting pretty annoyed, right? Like, you guys should have this information. Why can't your systems talk to each other? Data silos can be built up and ultimately impact your clients, which is not what you want to see. Or to use another example, as a restaurant owner, let's say I'm a restaurant owner, I'd love to know how much product I'm consuming each day so that I can more accurately forecast how much I need to have on hand at any given time, right? I'd also really love to know what my customer behavior is so that I can staff appropriately and not either have a bunch of my servers standing around or be significantly understaffed and have Tammy worried about 17 different tables and getting burnt out, ready to go work at the restaurant down the street, right? My point here is data silos introduce this type of variability that makes it so difficult for me to run my business from a lean environment. Without unified systems, for me to make good decisions, and because I've unintentionally built up data silos, I can't make decisions I need to make. Nobody goes out and says, hey, I'm going to build a data silo today so that we can communicate worse at my organization. Nobody does that. It's always unintentional, but we see it so commonly in our line of work. So ultimately, these are all common examples of data silos that we've seen in our work at Brewster Consulting Group. And maybe right about now, your heart rate's going up because you realize you've got more data silos than you realized coming into this presentation. Let's move on to the next key data issue that we see, the third one, historical data and reporting. Some of you might be familiar with a data warehouse, but others of you might not be. At a base level, a data warehouse helps to compile data from multiple different systems and merge it together using defined guardrails, we like to say, and rules that you set up that's going to drive data visibility that you need to be able to affect the outcomes that you're after, right? So what are some of the signs that you might need a data warehouse? Well, one sign is that it might be difficult for you to make future projections using the data that you have, right? Another sign, you might perceive your data structure to be complex. You've got a bunch of different systems and they're all operating in a silo. You can see how these kind of intertwine now, right? Another sign, you might struggle to produce accurate, consistent reporting. That will lead to clients being dissatisfied or you not being able to make decisions in your business. Another sign, you might use multiple systems and you're limited by the shelf life of the in-app reporting. So you might have some systems, but you can't look back at historical data past a year to be able to know your customer behavior. Again, if you're a restaurant in a specific example. The last sign I'll kind of use here is you've hired maybe a data person who's manually pulling information out of multiple systems. They're throwing it all in Excel and feeding a manual Power BI dashboard. That's another pretty good sign that you do need a data warehouse. Let's use an example here, okay? So let's pretend we are an IT managed service provider. Just starting out, we had 20 clients that you were managing IT services for. Now I've grown to 100 clients. I've added 2 more core systems, and now I'm hearing complaints from those clients about the inaccuracy of the reports that I am feeding them. Not a good situation, right? Or another example, let's say you're a gym and you started out, you own 1 location, you have 20 clients, you've now grown to 5 locations and you've got 1,000 clients. Now you've introduced some variability. You've got different people managing systems that track your new membership behavior. You've also gotten to the point now where maybe you have some client turnover and you want to better understand your life cycle so that you can introduce certain value-added opportunities at specific intervals that will cause people not to leave your gym and go down to the gym down the street. These are just a couple examples of small to medium-sized businesses that could really benefit from having better line of sight into their historical data and really could also benefit from having an automated data warehouse. Our last data issue that we're going to talk about today are manual data processes. So while data silos is the most frustrating to a leader, this is probably the most common of the data issues that we see in the small to medium-sized business space, right? Let me ask you a question to kind of put this in perspective. How much time have you wasted in the last week as a business leader exporting raw data into spreadsheets and trying to either pinpoint an issue yourself, or maybe you've called an expensive FTE in to try and do the same thing with raw data? You've wasted your time and you've introduced additional variability if you've manually manipulated the data for the next time it needs to be pulled and analyzed, right? Overall, manual data processing is like putting a band-aid on a gushing fire hydrant. You might solve one small problem, but that's not before you've sprung a couple new leaks and you've patched those up with some band-aids, and pretty soon you've got a fire hydrant with 65 band-aids on it, spewing water everywhere, and it's not a good situation for your business. Now, let me be very clear. We don't sell a specific technology. A flashy new system being fed bad data is still going to cause you to make bad decisions. You're just paying more for that system, and that doesn't help anyone. That said, though, we are huge fans of technology and the right systems to meet the need of the business that we're working with. So you might not know it, but there are systems out there that are really affordable to SMBs that are going to save you hours of manual data manipulation, and it's going to get you on the track of data visibility and ultimately improve decision making. Programs like Tableau or Alteryx or Openlytics, Power BI, EasyMorph. EasyMorph I know has a free version that you could potentially explore. These are all great programs that you can use to be able to help you gain a little bit of efficiency within your business. All right, so we're almost to the use case, but before we get there, I want to summarize what we've learned so far. Our 4 key data issues that we've covered are data accuracy and consistency, data silos, historical data and reporting, and manual data processes, right? Each of these have very real examples that we can point to. So for the first one, different definitions and calculations for the exact same metric. We saw that in the example at the Droid facility, right? Data silos, 2 or more business systems that are not integrated or functions that are not integrated. Historical data and reporting, inability to project future forecasts or past performance with your current data sets. Huge limitation in business. And finally, manual data processes using Excel, manual formulas, and manual exports to develop really important dashboards into which you're introducing variability that are going to cause you to make bad decisions in the future, right? As I get to the use case, using the chat feature, I want each of you to pick out one of these key issues and describe an example your organization struggles with. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, guys. Appreciate that. All right. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody. The doom and gloom of talking about data issues is now over, because we're going to talk and transition into talking about how you can alleviate these issues practically at your business. So we've talked through some Star Wars examples and we've had some fun, right? But now let's talk through a real life example, a real life use case, so that we can hit this point home for us. I want to set the stage for us. Internal to Brewster Consulting Group, we use a proprietary framework that evaluates business performance and drives the desired outcomes that we help businesses kind of define. And it's called the Process Maturity Scale. What it is, and I'm going to show it to you here in just a little bit, it's an 8-point scale for evaluating and rating maturity within your processes. Each level incorporates different deliverables to advance to the next level of process maturity, okay? At the end of the day, process maturity helps distill organizational strategy down and objectives down to actual tactical steps you can take to drive improvement in your performance. It really also helps align and prioritize disparate initiatives across your organization to maximize the positive impact. So over on the right-hand side of your screen, what problems does this solve? Number one, it helps you to solve disorganized internal processes, right? It provides a collaborative framework and approach to developing internal processes. It aligns all of your business units and helps you support your organizational goals at the end of the day. It solves unclear ownership, right? It places ownership instead for developing processes clearly on process owners and other leaders, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. It also solves the problem of misalignment between key stakeholders. It encourages continuous improvement of processes, really focusing on alignment with that key organizational drivers, okay? Convoluted strategy and roadmaps. Who hasn't been a part of an organization that has convoluted strategy and roadmaps? What it does, what process maturity does, is provides a clear roadmap for managers to develop their processes and to hold people accountable to those processes. And last but not least, it solves the problem of scattershot resourcing. Who's been a part of an organization, right, where something needs to get done? We've signed a contract with a client. We need to deliver on it. And Tim, you look like you have some availability. Let's yank you into the project. Process maturity helps from a resourcing perspective such that we spread the love, right? At Brewster Consulting Group, we believe that at a macro level, an organization is really just the sum of its micro level parts, right? Let me show you what I mean by giving you a specific example here. Let's say, again, back to the call center example, we're the director of a call center and we want to improve our client satisfaction rate, right? Why do we care? Why do we care? We want to improve client retention, and surely improving our client satisfaction rate will do that, which will lead to more revenues for us. Not to mention, who knows what other doors and opportunities it might open up from a referral perspective from that client if they do have a higher satisfaction rate, right? How are we going to measure client satisfaction rate? In this example, we're going to use Net Promoter Score, and our desire is to move from 6.5 to 9. If you know anything about NPS scores, that's a pretty hefty jump. How can we break down client satisfaction? Super difficult for me to tell you, hey, go improve client satisfaction without knowing what actually impacts client satisfaction, right? So in our call center, first call resolution percentage, response time, quality score, callback volume are all factors that will influence client satisfaction rate, which will ultimately influence revenue for us as a business. How are we going to influence these factors here? Well, let's take FCR, first call resolution percentage, as an example. We know that in our call center, we are currently performing at a 65% first call resolution rate because we've got callbacks. We need to increase that to 80% in this example. So that's what we're going to do, right? How are we going to do it? Well, number one, we're going to create a knowledge bank. Number two, we're going to have agent training. Number three, we're going to have some incentive plans maybe in place to increase agent retention. All of a sudden, you can see what we can actually affect that will ultimately lead back to an effect on your client satisfaction rate, which leads up to your revenue. This is what we're talking about whenever we talk about process maturity. So with that, let's dive into the actual process maturity scale. What you're looking at here is the process maturity scale that we use internally. It's proprietary to Brewster Consulting Group whenever we work with clients. The idea of the process maturity scale is to really effectively evaluate the maturity of processes and outline a roadmap that's going to help improve those processes. You'll see here that we've split these steps up into buckets, right? The goal of levels 1 through 3 is a clear understanding of the business objectives backed by sound data. To progress through this point, you have to have defined your key metrics that have supporting process maps and owners. Fundamentally, that's what you got to have in place to be able to progress through levels 1 through 3. Levels 4 through 5 are going to take you through the standardization journey. So your project management, PI type activities, waste reduction, optimization. You're going to go through these, leaving you with an accurate reporting mechanism and clear opportunities for improvement for you to go and act on. Then levels 6 through 8 really take you through the next step in automating your now confidently accurate data, and really unlocks your business potential through cool things like digital strategy and transformation or robotics process automation, things like that. I'll say most organizations that we work with are on steps 1 through 3. So if you're looking through this and you're kind of diagnosing where your organization is at and you're thinking you're behind, I can promise you you're not behind from what we've seen in the SMB space. You can skip to steps 6 through 8. But if you do that without going through the rest of the framework, you'll just be paying more money for expensive systems being fed the same faulty data that you've got right now. We know that skipping doesn't work. Ultimately, you've got to crawl before you can run. And when you're running, it's pretty fun. Like whenever you're getting to having conversations about things like digital strategy and transformation, those are really cool aspects to be part of. All right, so let's put this into action, okay? To put what we talked about into practice, we've created a fictional hospital here whose goal is to streamline their emergency department's operations by minimizing barriers to throughput and increasing patient satisfaction, right? I'll share this side note. More hospitals could stand to do this, couldn't they? I think the last time that I was in the emergency department was for my daughter, and we had to wait over 2 hours to be seen. That's fast in some places that we've worked with. Once we've gotten to this point, the first steps that we would take are clearly defining the subject matter experts and the owners, right? We identify the director of the emergency room as the owner and the care nurses who are actually taking care of patients as the subject matter experts. From that point, we would process map our throughput process, our current state process. Then we'd define the key metrics and develop a data dictionary off of that. Our goal measurement system is what you see here on your screen. The goal is to get to the point where you've got a measurement system that is being fed accurate data that you can then make decisions off of. If you get to the measurement system point before you have good data feeding it, that is going to be a useless activity. You'll be making faulty decisions that will not result in any kind of business progression as you want to have. All right, if you've never seen a process map before, we put the responsible parties as the swim lanes and then kind of overlay those swim lanes with the processes. You can see here in our example, we start with a patient arriving in the emergency department, and it ends with either a discharge or an admission to the hospital. Just about any one of these processes identified here in a rectangle can be blown out if there are inconsistencies in understanding. I'll say that 90+% of organizations that we work with do not have their key processes mapped out, and that's a problem. How are leaders supposed to make any kind of decision when everybody has a different understanding of how a process should work? So similar at the definition level, we were talking about the Droid facility earlier, definitions being inconsistent. How are leaders supposed to make decisions when everybody has a different understanding of how a process should work? The approach that we take whenever we work with organizations is to identify the most impactful processes, the owners and the SMEs, the subject matter experts, and we get those processes documented. We have to have them documented to have a start. When you're putting together process maps, you might find that your leadership starts to argue about what the process is. The goal here is alignment. Arguments are productive. That is affirmation that everybody was on a different page before, and now we're working to be on the same page. So whenever you get in arguments, although that may be kind of a precarious situation in some circumstances, that's actually a really good thing to see whenever you're talking about defining a process, because that shows that everybody's getting on the same page. We talked about speaking the same language before, and establishing your most impactful metrics and how those metrics are defined is absolutely necessary for consistency and alignment. In this example, the key metrics we've identified are over on the left-hand side. We're going to look at door to triage time, average patient acuity, door to doc time, patient arrival rate by hour of the day, the fast track rate, your average labs per patient, APP usage, which are your NPs, your nurse practitioners, and your physician's assistants, your door to discharge time. On the right-hand side is a sample data dictionary entry for the door to triage time KPI that you can see here. The key components of a data dictionary are the metric itself, so the door to triage time, the description, which here is the time that transpires between a patient checking in at the front of the emergency department to whenever the patient enters triage, and finally the technical definition of how the time is calculated, so the calculation area. In this example, it's going to pull data from tables in the electronic medical record to calculate the actual door to triage time. Once you've got your key processes mapped and your key metrics identified and defined, you can then move on to measuring the inputs and really determining where there's opportunity for improvement and taking action. I'll say it again because I know I've said it before, a fancy dashboard with bad data feeding it is like putting lipstick on a pig. Ultimately, as a leader, you're going to make changes on your operation relying on bad data and continue to spin your wheels if you don't fix your data problem at the definition level. The hard work's got to be done before moving to establishing the measurement system. If you do that hard work, standing up the actual measurement system here is easy. You've got a data dictionary now that tells you how your calculation is determined for the KPI you want to measure. You've got Power BI or another system pointing to the fields on the tables within your EMR, and now you can rinse and repeat because you've got accurate data and a story of where you should be putting your time as a leader to improve. In this example, specifically to call it out, we can see that our average door to admit time in the ED is 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's how long it takes from stepping in the door for me to be able to be admitted to the hospital if I've got a significant issue that I presented for in the ED. If all of our data is accurate, we can drill down to understand by advanced practice provider, so by APP, who is lagging behind, say from an efficiency perspective or a quality perspective, and identify coaching opportunities to help that provider. So the key here that I need everybody to remember is that if you've got good data feeding your measurement systems, there's no end to the amount of improvement that you can make. You can correlate data that you know to be accurate to another field and then identify areas for improvement. But if you don't have accurate underlying data, the decisions that you're making are going to seem productive, but they're going to be useless overall because you're not measuring data in a consistent fashion. This is the output of a well-built measurement system. You're going to see the same process map as before here, overlaid with throughput times now, right? So in this example, we can see on our screen it takes 2 hours for a patient to receive a CT scan. That's a problem that we can now dig into and solve, resulting in real measurable value. On the bottom of your screen here, you'll see a sub-process blown out. So a patient receives a CT scan, that's what takes 2 hours, with the process steps that it actually takes to do that. So in this example, we can see it takes 30 minutes for somebody to get strapped into a CT scanner at this particular organization. I can tell you one thing, I do not want to take 30 minutes to be strapped into anything, let alone a CT scanner. And then the actual CT scanning taking 40 minutes is also an issue that we can dive into as well to see where the opportunities for improvement might be. All right, that was a lot of information, right? So I want to summarize here. I've distilled everything that I have talked about down into 10 steps, and I want to cover those with you right now, okay? The first step is you need to define your goals. If you don't have goals, if you're shooting in the dark, you're not going to ever hit anything, right? Once you've got your goals worked out, you need to define the key metrics that you're going to measure that are going to influence, move the needle on your goals, right? You're going to then identify your most impactful processes. You have to identify the most impactful processes to the key metrics that are going to influence your goals, so you know how much effort you're going to have to put in for the juice being worth the squeeze, for lack of a better term, right? From there, you identify your owners and SMBs, so who owns those most impactful processes. You work with them to process map those most impactful processes. Then you define the metrics at the process level that you want to measure. So similar to the key metrics that you want to measure, you got to define your process metrics that you're going to measure. Then you're going to build a data dictionary, making sure everybody is on the same page, speaking the same language, right? And then from there, you can really see the power in this. You build your measurement system. You know without a shadow of a doubt the data feeding your measurement system is now accurate, and the decisions that you're going to be making are actually moving the needle on your business. You're getting to the outcomes that you want to be able to see. From there, you analyze your opportunities for improvement, root cause, like I just said, and then take action. If you do everything else and you don't take action, all it is a bunch of fancy information in a dashboard, right? So if the steps that I just covered seem really difficult, or you want to discuss more about your nuanced situation at your organization, I want to connect with you. You can keep doing what you've been doing and not getting the results that you want, or we can have a conversation and we can talk about how we can help you. I want you to remember we've driven over $50 million worth of improvement collectively at Brewster Consulting Group to organizations that we've worked with, and we do it by doing what we talked about today. If we're being fully transparent, we've actually not worked with a client yet that we couldn't help improve and turn a return on investment for them. The QR code up in the top left-hand side of your screen is going to redirect you to a calendar page where you can schedule a meeting with us. There's really no commitment necessary, but if you're ready to make a change that's going to result in improvement, I hope that you'll schedule something with us. With that, I want to tell you again that I just really appreciate each of you coming today, and hopefully you've been able to take some information that you've learned today and will be able to apply it at your organization. We'd be honored to be able to have a conversation with you. So I hope you'll schedule something. We look forward to talking with each of you soon. Thanks again.